Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about staff investment, getting your teams invested in you, your mission, your culture, your vision, your particular leadership style, and invested in each other as well. Obviously, teams need to be able to work together or they're not going to be very successful. So when I talk about investment, I talk about people, quote unquote, buying in, yeah? They want to come to work. They're happy to work. They're constantly trying to better themselves and each other and help each other better themselves. So if you don't have investment, I know a lot of you, this has come up a lot. I've seen it a lot. Azaya, Kate, how are you? I've seen it come up a lot where like people will ask me like, my team doesn't care, nobody gives a shit, nobody works as hard as me, or we have weak links, etc. All of that is due to investment. You know, like they don't care. Things like they don't necessarily want to be there, etc. So it'll have a negative impact on like morale, motivation, and just your overall cohesion of your brigade. And I don't have to tell you that it can get pretty nasty pretty quick when you're dealing with these things. So if your staff are highly invested and if they've bought in and their motivation and morale is high. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Nicholas. Okay. They'll work harder for you. You know, you'll get like 110 on a really good day. And if they're not having a good day, you'll get maybe 75 or 80 instead of 60. They will generally be more forgiving of an adverse condition. So if they have to come in on the day off to cover a shift, or maybe you're really busy one day and they can't have a break, stuff like that, like things that really normally get in our craw, if they're bought in and they're invested, they're not going to stick around in their psyche as long, and they're not gonna have a negative effect on their attitude of the business. Which leads to like a generally less negative attitude as well. If they've bought in, you know, there's not going to be as much griping, bitching, which obviously leads back to like the morale thing, because morale is very important. Now, I guess the most important thing, or the most common question I get asked is like, how do I get my team to invest? How do I, hey Corey, how are you, mate? Kevin, Steve, Travis, hi guys. I get asked a lot, like, how do I get my team to invest? You know, they don't seem to care. I can't get them to give a shit. I can't get them to pay attention. So not everything's going to work in every venue or for every leader or for every staff member, but there's a wide toolkit, I guess, you could use to get where you want to go. Hi, Alex. So you want them. So the main thing to remember is that people are going to feel invested in a team or a venue if they're a part of it. So if you bring them into like creative processes for menu writing, for example, every time you're writing your menu, get all of your staff to bring suggestions. Fuck, even your KP if they know something. Your trainees, your apprentices, and then make sure you use one or two of those things. That will feel like that their skills and that will let them feel like their skills and their culinary identity, I guess, if you will, are being recognized and utilized properly. And also what that will do too, like if you have, say, 8 members of your brigade and they've all got 2 or maybe 3 things of their own, it doesn't have to be a full dish. Maybe it's just a sauce, like you use that sauce off that dish that Chef 1, you know, suggested, and then Chef 3's protein gets that sauce, or, you know, whatever. You don't have to have complete dishes. But what will happen is that if your menu is made up of a lot of things that your whole brigade has come up with, they will police each other. Hey man, that's not how I want my sauce made. You know what I mean? So it becomes this cycle of self-policing and quality control. All right, Nicholas. So it's twofold, yeah? They feel invested because their ideas and their methods or techniques are being used, and then it becomes like, yeah, exactly, Sandy, exactly, ownership. I'll get to responsibility in just a second too, but that's very good. Yeah, and that they'll police each other. Hey, man, that's not really how it's meant to be done, you know. And if your culture's right, and if your team cohesion's right, they're not going to be like nagging and ratty at each other. They'll just be like, oh, hey, dude, that's not how we do it. And also, if a chef's come up with something that I've never done before, like a sauce or a technique or something, as a leader, I don't have to worry about training all the staff how to do it. The guy that came up with it can, or the guy that wants to do it can. So that takes more load off your plate, you know, and it builds confidence within your team as well. Another thing is like, so apart from your main menu, if you're a venue that does specials, you run a lot of specials, don't interfere too much with them. Have your staff do them. Have your staff run them, come up with them. If you want to get them costed by them, have them cost them as well, if that's how your venue runs. I know a lot of them do. And that just feeds into the menu thing, but it's more regular, obviously, because you're running specials all the time. Yes, Sandy, always be open to learning. Every day is a school day. So one thing that I used to do a lot when it comes to specials was that we'd run little friendly comps between the brigade. So like, who could sell the most specials? So we'd have 20 portions of this. I got to 17. Old mate got to 13, and I'd get like they'd get like a little beer after work or something like that. Just something like that, like just a little friendly competition. And if your culture's right, and if your team work really well together, it won't be a negative thing. Somebody won't be upset because they lost. They'll just be like, oh, the better special one, I'm going to come up with a better one next time. That will get them invested, because they'll be like, oh, I don't want to lose again. I want to make sure I get the next one. Chris, Chloe, James. And the reward doesn't have to be physical either. Like a lot of chefs, a lot of managers or leaders, I think, like, oh, we have to give them staff drinks or a monetary bonus or something. Like, no, it could be something as simple as like an early finish, like knock them off so they don't have to scrub down that night, or you can come in a couple of hours early tomorrow morning. Like get creative. It doesn't necessarily have to be money or a physical thing, A lot of chefs have resigned to the fact that we're not doing this to be rich, but we really do like abstract ways of having of getting appreciation shown. Yeah, so Jeff, that's what I was talking about, mate. You don't compensation can be money. That's what I was touching on before. Like it can be, but I was talking about the other day, like that only gets you so far. I've spoken to hundreds of people about this. I've done polls, we've done threads about it. People want conditions over money, and so it's nice having an extra $100 in your bank account, but if you're fucking miserable and you don't feel appreciated, you're not going to go to work. Simple as that. We've all been there. Most veterans will be able to tell you that, yep, I've had high-paying jobs that have absolutely fucking cooked me because of the culture, because my boss doesn't appreciate me. I don't feel invested because of these things. I've been there. I've been on handsome salaries, and I've just burnt out my boss for whatever reason, and then I've taken jobs where, I'm kind of like on the border about the salary, but the conditions have been really good. We get to have staff beers. I get to have, so another big one too, if you're an owner, operator, or if you're an exec and you can do it, fucking weekends off, man. Like give them a Saturday night off, or give them a Saturday night and a Sunday morning off so they can go out and have fun. Stuff like that. Like that's huge. Like that is fucking massive. And it's one that a lot of people you can't do it all the time. I understand that. A lot of teams and brigades aren't built or provisioned for that. You can't afford to have those members off. But if you can, it's a really good trick. Not trick, it's a really good reward, I should say, rather. And it's overlooked, yeah. But only if it's viable. You don't want to give somebody the night off and cost your brigade a good service, because they won't like that. And as far as the other verbal, Jeff, I'm a big one on manners, man. Always show appreciation, please, thank you. You did a really good job today. Things like that, they're overlooked and they're underappreciated, and a lot of managers don't do it, and I don't know why. Because people won't notice it at first, but if you know what it's like the little things will start to stack up, yeah, and then something else will go on top of that, and you go, oh yeah, Andy doesn't use his manners, and he speaks to us like this, and he never shows, it'll start to stack. Yeah, Kev, fucking good, Suze. Yeah, well, the world would be a better place if we all had fucking weapons for Suze, man. And getting back to the weekend thing, all right, as far as rewards and getting them invested, if somebody wants a weekend off to go to a concert and it can be done, do it. Or they want a midweek off to go to an event or something, let them do it. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial incentives or rewards. They do help. I also find with them, they have more impact if they're not regular. So, for example, every couple of months, you split $100 between a couple of staff members, or a couple of $100 between a couple of the staff members. If they're not regular, they'll have more impact, right? Because your staff, they won't expect it all the time, and because it is quote unquote unexpected, they will feel better because of it, because it doesn't happen all the time, right? And you also don't want to get to the point as a leader, owner, operator, whatever, of you don't want staff doing these things just to get rewarded. Yeah, you want the rewards to be side benefits. You want rewards to be side benefits and not the go-to, because what happens is if you start to struggle or whatever, your whole incentive structure will just break down. So another thing for investment as well, I find this a lot, deflect praise onto your team. So if you have a good service, or you get lots of, you have a big function, you get lots of, what's the word? Compliments. Fuck me. You get lots of compliments, or say you get a write-up in the newspaper, or you win a local culinary award, something like that. Deflect praise to your team. It wasn't me. It's thanks to my team. I couldn't have done it without them, etc. It's genuine too, because let's be honest, there's not a single successful chef in the fucking world that's ever done it by themselves. That's just the way there is. And it also lets your team know that they've played a part in this success. Yeah, it's very important. And then to a certain degree, you want to take the heat as well. So deflect the positive stuff onto the team, and you want to try and take a lot of the negative stuff too. This comes down to culture and your skill as a leader as well. But you'll find if you start taking a bit of heat, even if it's in front of by other managers. So if you've got department heads, at a hotel or something, you take the heat for your team. And then if those issues need to be addressed, you do that behind the scenes. You don't do it publicly, and you just sort of quietly figure out what needed to be done to fix that, and you just rectify it. You don't roast your team, which brings me back to my next little point, which is good behavior will be rewarded and spoken about in public. Bad behavior is always private, right? Teams will not buy in, and they will not be invested, and they will not want to work for you if you belittle them in front of their own team. You know what I mean? And I guess finally, another big one too. It's obvious, but it's not the most commonly done practice, is train your staff, right? So what I mean by that is like train them to do expo, yeah, train them to do grill, train them to do stove. If you put them in positions to learn new sections, learn new things, and you're constantly rotating them through the sections and getting them, upskilling them, they're going to be invested because they feel like when they come to work, they're learning something new, right? I've worked in brigades, and I know for a fact you guys would have, where if you're good at pans or stoves, saute, whatever the fuck is called all over the world, you'll just be stuck there. And that's okay for a little while, and then you'll get bored. You won't want to come to work. You know, again, it seems simple, but I don't see it. And it's twofold as well. So it keeps things interesting. People are constantly rotating around different sections and upskilling them. And it's also good for, it's good for investment in, like, they feel like they're needed in a way. So you can delegate if you want to have a night in the pit, or if you want to have a night on cold ladder, or if you need a night in the office to catch up on paperwork. If everybody's trained properly, you can just handball it off to them and off they go. It's very powerful when a team can work without their leader present and they can work effectively. It's very powerful for buy-in, for trust, and for morale. And it will really increase a brigade's belief in themselves and each other. So yeah, encourage them to work on different sections, train them to do so, and get them doing different things all the time. That's about it, guys. I don't really have much else. I don't really want to get this one too long. So basically, to sum it up, when it comes to investment, you want to train your staff. You want to have them be a part of your venue when it comes to menu writing and specials, and even things like rules. You know, like consult. If people feel like they've been consulted and they're a part of a process, they're far more likely to want to be a part of that process, and they're far more likely to enforce that process with others. And like I said before about self-policing. Reward good behavior. Doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but reward it publicly, and deal with bad behavior privately. And I guess the last one would be about deflecting praise onto your team and shielding them from negativity when appropriate. If no one's got any questions or whatever, thank you, Nicholas. I'm glad you got some value out of it, man. No worries, Michael. It'll be up in the group, man. And as usual, you guys know, like you can rewatch this at any time. They're in the group. If you have anything you want to add, you know, PM me. You know, put a post up in the group. Comment on the video. It'll get dealt with. I always try my absolute best to get to everyone, and help them as much as we can. So yeah, guys. Unless anybody has any other questions, I'm gonna leave it there, and we'll come back to another topic next time. Everyone's good. All right. Cheers, guys.